Hi friends, this is Lokesh Pathak with you and welcome to the second class of Law of Torts. So the topic today what we are going to cover is elements of tortious liability. So in the previous lecture, we have seen what is meant by tort and the definition of tortious liability, and now we'll extend that discussion to the elements of tortious liability. So if you see, there are three basic elements of tortious liability, but before that we should see what are the mental elements in tortious liability. So again, there are three mental elements in tortious liability, and these are malice, negligence and motive. So malice out of these is further divided into two parts, which is malice in law and malice in fact. Malice in law represents that any willful act which is done without just cause or excuse is malice in law. And the famous case which supports this is Bromwich versus Prosser, which is 1825 case. Malice in fact denotes the evil motive. So this is about malice, and for negligence and motive we will see in further classes because they came into specific tort and that need to be discussed in detail. Now coming back to the elements of tortious liability, there are three elements of tortious liability, and these are act or omission, legal injury and remedy. Act or omission, what it is? Act is something positive which you do to commit a offense, while omission is something which you do not do but you are required to do as per your legal duty. So that is the difference between act or omission. Act is something positive, means you do something, while omission is negative when you do not do something which you are ought to do. Second thing is legal injury. So the first point which we discussed, that there must be an act or omission. Now the second thing is a legal injury. Legal injury, first of all we should understand what does mean by the term injury in terms of law of torts. Injury is violation of legal right. Means if there is a violation related to any of your legal rights, you can say that you have suffered an injury. So that is the second point. And the third is remedy. But before we go to the remedy, we should see what are the types of injuries and in what ways the injury can happen as per law of torts. So there are two maxims which determine the legal injury. The first one is injuria sine damnum, which means injury without damage. And the second one is damnum sine injuria, which means damage without injury. Injuria sine damnum. When there is an injury without a damage, it is admissible for the compensation. While damnum sine injuria, when there is a damage but there is no injury caused, it is uncompensable, means you will not get any compensation if you suffered a damage but there is no injury caused to you, means nobody has committed any injury for you. So let's see the case laws from law of torts which can support these maxims. For injuria sine damnum, the famous case is Ashby versus White. It is 1703 case, and in that let's see the fact of this case. What happened that a person who was stopped from voting by the supporters of the another party in an election, but although when he was taken out and he could not vote, the party to whom that person was supporting that won. Now when this person take that point to the court of law, the other party they contended that although they stopped the person from voting, but there is no damage caused to the person because to whom he was supporting that party won. So court taken that as a point, but it stated that the person who is a plaintiff, he has suffered an injury, no matter whether he has got any damage or not, but he has suffered an injury, means there is a violation of his legal right, and that is why compensation is admissible, and hence the plaintiff in this case he succeeded injunction for the voting process. Now this was in support to injuria sine damnum. Now for the damnum sine injuria, when there is a damage without injury and which is not compensable, let's see a case. The case here is Gloucester Grammar School case of 1410. The fact of the case are there were two colleagues, and one of them was owning a school, and that is a very reputed school, it was working fine. The other person, he opens a school nearby and he reduces the fee structure. Now what happened, it affected the business of the first person, the school's business of the first person. So in that case, the person take that point to the litigation and he said that he has suffered a damage. So in this case, the court admitted it, that there was a damage but there was no injury caused by the person of the second school. So here the case becomes damnum sine injuria, means there is a damage but there was no injury caused. Hence the person who took the case into litigation, he is not entitled for any compensation in this case. So with these two cases, I hope you can understand the difference between injuria sine damnum and damnum sine injuria. Now the remedy. For the remedy in tortious liability, again there are two maxims which govern the principle, and these are ibi jus ubi remedium and ubi jus ibi remedium. Ibi jus ubi remedium says where there is a remedy, there will be right. Means if remedy is available, then the eligibility of right will be then only. Means if there is no remedy available in the law of torts, there is no right. So this is a very limited approach and it is not justifiable. While the second maxim, which says that ubi jus ibi remedium, it says where there is a right, there will be remedy. Means no matter there is no remedy available, but since you have a right, so the law or the court, they have to determine some remedy which can be awarded to you. So hence this means that if any legal right is violated, the court must give remedy under this law, no matter court to provide a new law as a law of tort is uncodified. So this is the difference between ubi jus ibi remedium and ibi jus ubi remedium. Now in support of this ubi jus ibi remedium, let's see a case. There is a case from Indian litigation and which is Usha Bain versus Bhagyalakshmi Chitramandir. The fact of this case are that there was a lady which her name was Usha Bain and she gone to watch a movie. The name was Jai Santoshi Ma. In that movie, she has seen that there was a bad portrayal of the goddesses like Parvati and Lakshmi, and she got hurt with that, and she filed an injunction suit. Now that could not be succeeded in the law of tort, and she was advised to go with CPC. And that as per CPC, she filed the injunction and that was acceptable. So in such case, it was guided to her that although there is no remedy available for this emotional disturbance in the tort, but at the same time, she was suggested another remedy which she can seek in any other jurisdiction. So that is the way the law works. So ubi jus ibi remedium is a justified use because that should be the right approach. Now there was a distinction between the jurists on this point that whether it should be ibi jus ubi remedium or ubi jus ibi remedium, and Salmon and Wilfield, they had different opinion with that, and that we will see when we will discuss about the nature of the tort in the next class. So as of now, elements of tort we discussed, mental elements we have seen, there were 3, and in general there were 3 elements of tortious liability which we have just seen. The first is act or omission, second is a legal injury. For determining that we have 2 maxims, injuria sine damnum and damnum sine injuria, we have seen their case laws. Then for the remedy there are again 2 maxims which is ibi jus ubi remedium and ubi jus ibi remedium, and we have seen the associated case law also. So that's all for today. And in the next class, we will see about the nature of tort and what is difference between tort and torts. And then we will see what are the difference between tort with respect to crime, contract, quasi-contract, trust, etc. Till then, stay tuned. Bye.